By minimizing those human errors in data entry and loan eligibility calculations, AI can pretty much ensure that borrowers are getting the most accurate information possible and could translate into better loan terms and lower costs for borrowers, basically further increasing their affordability.
Welcome to Actualizing Success. In this podcast series, our in-house advisors discuss today's finance and technology topics with an emphasis on solutions that embrace tomorrow.
During this podcast, we will explore how an industry that's been historically very high touch is embracing technology and innovation and what benefits can be realized. And so that part of the industry is housing counseling within the broader affordable housing space. And for folks that pay attention to Actualize, you know that we've been very involved in the affordable housing space since the beginning of our mortgage and fixed income practice, and also within the housing counseling space. And historically, this has been extremely beneficial in that the focus on leveraging housing counseling in order to prepare borrowers for the purchase of a home, or perhaps even to make sure that they stay in their home by keeping up on their payments it's been a very important part of the industry. However, really the limiting factor is how many borrowers can be matched up with how many counselors in order for that exchange to occur. And also I think there's been some limitations in how would you best leverage information and technology so that the borrower is being prepared for the right mortgage and those types of things. And again, this is an industry that's been going on for a really long time, and much of it has been face-to-face or over the phone, personal interaction. And yet at the same time, we've seen so much advancement in terms of technology, data, analytics, and such. And so today, we're going to talk a little bit about that. On the podcast today, we've got two guests, Jon Cooper, who is a senior manager with Actualize and has focused a lot of his time on affordable products and in the space. And we've got Nina Fiore, manager with Actualize, who has been highly involved in some things in MISMO related to affordable housing standards in the housing counseling space, is also focusing on innovation and artificial intelligence within the company. So welcome the two of you. So Jon, let's get the dialogue going. Given the market conditions and the changes there, why is housing counseling more important now than ever before?
Well, I think there's a couple reasons, Matt. First off, this high interest rate environment we're in, which is, I'm sad to say, probably the new normal. The days of the sub 3% mortgage, they're gone and probably not coming back for a while, right? So housing is just more expensive than it used to be. The cost of housing is skyrocketing. There's limited supply, not enough new inventory, definitely not enough new starter home inventory, and existing home sales are down, right? Because, I'll take my personal experience. I'm locked in at a sub 3% mortgage. I'm not giving that up, right? So I'm going to sit on my house for quite a long time. Another reason is building and zoning codes. They're getting more strict, tougher every day. So cost of new construction is going up. Finding land where you can put in affordable housing is a difficult process these days as well.
So that's interesting. And I hear everything you're saying. And when you think about housing counseling and the impact that it can have on low-income borrowers, what do you think some of the levers are from a technology perspective that could help in that?
Well, I think one of the big problems today is it's the housing counseling process itself is kind of orphaned out of the mortgage origination process, right? So counselors and borrowers work independently. Let's say it takes a year. They get a certificate or whatnot, says, hey, this borrower's gone through education or they've cleaned up their credit. We've helped them with down payment assistance. We've educated them on the process, and then they go on their merry way, right? There's no connection between the counselors and the lenders, so you can't measure outcomes after the counseling is complete. So I don't know if he was denied a mortgage. I don't know if he got a mortgage. There's just no tracking back to prior to pre-application on the lender side. So it's very difficult to say, what are the actual outcomes and effectiveness of housing counseling.
So really, you're alluding to, the need for more data that connects the dots, I suppose, and cause and effect. And so when I think about that, I think about, maybe there's a way that it could be standardized. Nina, I know you've been working on some things with MISMO in a work group related to standards in the housing counseling space. You want to talk a little bit about that and what you think some of the benefits could be from that?
Absolutely. So as both you and John just talked about, housing counselors play a really vital role in affordability and access to mortgages, but they operate frequently in really siloed technology. And basically that hinders them from being able to have seamless communication and collaboration with other stakeholders. So the future of housing counseling really hinges on greater connectivity with some of those stakeholders like lenders, servicers, and agencies throughout the mortgage lifecycle. And to be able to do that, there needs to be a digital transformation, which includes standardizing of the housing counseling data to be able to facilitate that information sharing and kind of enhance the client's housing journey. Additionally, the housing counseling industry faces a lot of challenges in tracking and attributing outcomes to counseling services due to the lack of standardized data, which we just talked about. So by adopting a standardized housing counseling data set, agencies and their partners can gather all of their necessary information to be able to do really advanced analytics and be able to demonstrate correlations between counseling services and long-term borrower success. And that hard data that links their activities to social impact would be able to help affordable housing operators advocate for support for new projects. And basically that empirical data would also help local and state governments balance costs and operate more efficiently. So that's where the MISMO Housing Counseling Work Group comes into effect. That's really a collaborative effort within the MISMO organization that's really focused on developing that data standard for the housing counseling industry.
Yeah, it sounds really exciting. And earlier I was talking a little bit about how you've been personally and with Actualize really interested in some innovative technologies, specifically RPA, AI, different things that may be able to be applied there. And, we all know that there's a lot of power in these tools, but have you thought a little bit about how we may want to apply some of them to this industry and to housing counseling in general?
Yeah, so when it comes to affordability in the mortgage industry, the way AI could help is by allowing greater accessibility to homeownership. Basically, AI has the ability to analyze vast amounts of structured and unstructured data, and that would allow AI to really revolutionize the mortgage process and services, which would ultimately drive down costs and make homeownership more affordable and more of a reality for more people. And so ways that we can start doing that now are by increasing speed and efficiency, automating tedious tasks like approval processes and data extraction, slashing processing times and reducing the need for manual labor. And that not only saves times, but also cuts down on operational costs and makes mortgages more affordable for borrowers. So accuracy is also a key benefit of AI integration. By minimizing those human errors in data entry and loan eligibility calculations, AI can pretty much ensure that borrowers are getting the most accurate information possible and could translate into better loan terms and lower costs for borrowers, basically further increasing their affordability.
That's awesome. I was at an event, gosh, it's almost been a year ago, and it was really interesting. AI was top of mind in terms of the discussion, and the panel included folks from across the industry, from regulators, from part of the government space, et cetera. And the panel talked a lot about AI and what the benefits were in terms of that. And it was interesting. There was a gentleman that was at the back of the room, and he stood up and he started talking about AI and how, and his company had a product that helped do this. He thought that perhaps you could do an entire mortgage without a human being involved in terms of the lender side of things. And the conversation was interesting. And of course, the room was full of people that were all hyped up about AI and what it could do and the endless possibilities. And I found it really interesting that one of the panelists was a regulator from California, and she quickly put on the brakes and said, well, hold on, wait a minute. How do we make sure that AI doesn't go amok? And by the way, AI can have unintended consequences, especially if the data that's relying on had human bias in it to begin with. And so, real interesting to hear that perspective. And so for me, at least, I'm not really sure where it starts and it stops in terms of its efficacy in the lending space. And Nina, I think you discussed a couple of things that were more operational in nature that certainly could provide better efficiency and so forth. But I, putting you on a spot a little bit, I mean, what have you thought about in terms of some of the consequences of some of these AI tools, and where do you think the challenges might be in terms of that?
Yeah, so it's definitely important to acknowledge the challenges and concerns that come with AI, especially in the mortgage process. A lot of the things I mentioned, like you said, were operational efficiencies that can be achieved because there are definitely large privacy issues, compliance with industry regulations, and then, like you said, the risk of biased decision making. And those are all very valid concerns that have to be addressed to ensure that AI works in the best interest of borrowers. So those things, I think, are on the landscape, but further out while policy is being developed so that we can control for those things. I think what's important to realize is that outside of those decision-making sort of processes that people talk about, like a person-free mortgage, there is a lot of potential to transform sort of that space without getting that far into it. So things like providing personalized mortgage recommendations, offering real-time updates on approval status, or just enhancing the customer service experience through virtual assistants and chatbots. Like that levels the playing field and increases accessibility for borrowers of all backgrounds.
Yeah, I think that's a great summary on that. And I do think that there's an awful lot more that we're going to see soon in this space. So we've talked a lot about things today, and I'd mentioned earlier that we've been involved a lot in this space. It's part of our corporate culture to give back, and also we always try to make sure that the person, be it an employee of ours or customer or anyone else that we deal with in the community, is better at the end of the day. And so again, this is something that we're really focused on. And Jon, I know you've been working on making some changes to some of our marketing materials and things of that nature. Can you just tell me or tell the audience where you can find this information?
The best place to go would be our website, actualizeconsulting.com. And if you want more information that's available there, do the About Us and contact us, fill out the form, and we'll route it to the appropriate person, and they'll be back in touch with you.
Yep, that sounds great. And Nina, I know, you've been involved in this work group. Could you talk a little bit about how somebody might get involved in that if they're interested?
Yeah, so the MISMO website, mismo.org, has a full listing of all the work groups. So there's not just the housing counseling work group. There are plenty of other ones working on data standards and other cool stuff. So you can check that out at mismo.org.
Yeah. And if you can't find it on mismo.org because you're not a member or what have you, you can always get back in touch with Actualize. So I think we've had a real good chat today, a lot of interesting information, and clearly there's a whole lot more than that out there. So really appreciate your time today, Nina and John, and we'll have more to come in our next podcast. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Actualizing Success. Make sure to visit us online at www.actualizeconsulting.com, where you can explore our service offerings. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or your preferred platform. If you've enjoyed what we talked about today, please consider leaving a review and following us on LinkedIn. If you have any questions or would like to share your opinions with us, please send us a note at podcast@actualizeconsulting.com. We look forward to hearing from you.